Paratmanamekam jagadbijamadyam niriham nirakaram onkara vedyam yato jayate palyate yena vishvam tamisham bhaje liyate yatra vishvam. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat. Dear students of Ramakrishna Vidyamandiram, Bengaluru, my good wishes to all of you. I thank Ramakrishna Vidyamandiram, the organizers, for having invited me to deliver this talk in a series of talks meant for especially the students of this Vidyarthi Mandiram. In this series of talks, last month, I had shared my ideas on the subject of true nationalism or understanding nationalism in Indian context. And today, I have been asked to talk on the subject of what we can learn from the Upanishads. So before we go into the subject of what we can learn from the Upanishads, let us try to understand what Upanishads are. Bharat, India, is Veda Bhumi. This is the land of the Vedas. If you go back into the history, right from the ancient times, the culture, the civilization which existed in this part of the world, that culture and civilization is the Vaidika Sanatana Dharma's culture and civilization. It is this Vaidika Sanatana Dharma's culture and civilization is what today known to the world as the Hindu culture or Hindu civilization. So when we talk about the Vaidika Sanatana Dharma as the basis of our lands, our countries, culture and civilization, we need to understand what this Vedas mean. Vedas, the word Veda comes from the Sanskrit root Vid. Vid means to know or knowledge. So Vedas essentially deals with knowledge. But what kind of knowledge? There are two kinds of knowledge. One is the knowledge gained by in and through our sense organs, sensory system. And this is the knowledge of the physical world and in which is included all the physical sciences. There is another kind of knowledge which transcends the sensory plane. Vedas essentially deal with that plane of existence which transcends the sensory plane. So we can say that Vedas are a collection of universal scientific spiritual principles and laws. It is a vast corpus of knowledge which deals with transsensory realm of existence. And the main concern of the Vedas, the central point of the Vedas, is what we find in the Upanishads. The essence of the Vedas is what we get in the Upanishads. And the main concern of the Upanishads is nothing but that ultimate reality called Brahman. The entire Vedas have got only one subject matter, and that is to help the human being experience Brahman. But the very focused and concentrated discussion on how to attain the knowledge of this ultimate reality, that is found in the Upanishads, which is known as the very essence of the Vedas. It is also called Vedanta. So the main subject matter of Upanishad is the true nature of the human being, the true nature of the world which we are experiencing, and to help us experience that reality. That reality is known by terms like Brahman, Atman. That is why it is also known as Brahma Vidya or Atma Vidya. It is the Vidya or is the science of Atman realization or the science of self-realization. Or you may say that it is the science of Brahman realization, the way to realize Brahman, and the complete picture about this ultimate reality. Now, there are several Upanishads. More than 100 Upanishads are available even today. And among these more than 100 Upanishads, 11 Upanishads are considered to be primary or principal Upanishads. The reason is that Sri Shankaracharya of medieval India, he had commented upon these 11 Upanishads. And in our great Brahma Vidya tradition, because Sri Shankaracharya commented upon these 11 Upanishads are considered to be the principal Upanishads. To have a complete understanding about the ultimate reality, it is enough to study these 11 Upanishads. And if a seeker, if an aspirant is sincere enough, and if he follows the words of the Upanishads and molds himself in that way, one can, in course of time, experience Brahman. So among these 11 Upanishads, we have a very beautiful Upanishad called Katha Upanishad. Katha Upanishad belongs to the Krishna Yajurveda. It is an Upanishad which was very dear to Swami Vivekananda. Why it was dear to Swami Vivekananda? Because usually in the Upanishads we have very profound discussions about the true nature of the man and the true nature of this world which we are experiencing. And the discussions are very sharp, focused, and requiring a very keen intellect and a deep, penetrating, inquiring mind to understand the subject. But there's a speciality about Katha Upanishad, where this profound subject is placed before us in and through a beautiful character. The name of this character is Nachiketa. Now we shall see why Swami Vivekananda liked Katha Upanishad so much. That was because of this wonderful character called Nachiketa. In Nachiketa, we find a role model for all of us to follow, especially the students whom I am addressing today. It would be wrong if I say that it is only for the students. No, it is for everyone. In fact, every seeker of the truth will find Nachiketa to be the person to be followed. The qualities which he embodied within himself, those are the very qualities which we have to have within ourselves. So, what was so special about Nachiketa? This is the story of Nachiketa, and in and through the story of Nachiketa, a great subject matter is kept before all of us. Now, what is the story of Nachiketa? Nachiketa's father's name was Vajashravasa. He was a rich man, a householder, and we have to remember we are talking about a time, a very ancient time. You may say this is the Vedic age or the Vedic civilization and the Vedic culture. The way of life was different from the way of life we are having today. In those days, to perform yagyas or sacrifices was a very usual matter. Householders, they used to perform different kinds of sacrifices in order to fulfill their various wishes. These sacrifices were meant to accomplish so many things in human life. They're all very technical things. We need not go into those technical aspects of this yajna. But it was a means to attain prosperity in human life. This prosperity is known as Abhyudaya. Abhyudaya means to have material prosperity and prosperity of all kind. So in and through these sacrifices, householders, they would wish to attain so many good things of life. And these sacrifices were based upon the injunctions of the scriptures. So in and through such performances of scriptural sacrifices or scriptural yagyas, householders, they would wish to fulfill many of their desires and wishes. So Vajashrava, he was performing this Vishvajit Yagya. This Vishvajit Yagya is a yagya in which the performer, towards the end of the sacrifice, has to give away everything in charity. That is the very way this yagya has to be performed. Towards the end of the sacrifice, everything that the person has to be given away in charity. So as he was performing this sacrifice, towards the end, when the time came to give away the good things to all the Brahmins, Vajashravasa started giving away cows to all those people who had assembled there. We should remember that in olden days, cow was the currency. As just like today we have a currency, and when we give money to somebody, that money becomes useful for others. The same way in the olden days, cow was the measure of wealth. So more the cows a person had, the more richer he was. So giving away cow was a very important thing to be done by the way of charity. So Vajashravasa was distributing cows, but what he was doing was actually wrong. Why? He was supposed to give away everything, but what he was doing was he was keeping the good cows with himself, and he was giving away all old, decrepit, useless cows to the Brahmins. The cows who were old, which were not fit for any farming purposes, which could not bear calves, which could not give milk, this kind of old and decrepit and useless cows were being distributed by Vajashravasa to the Brahmins. And this was noted by Nachiketa. Nachiketa, let me just tell you, he is a small boy of just 8 years of age, 8 or 10 years of age, a small boy, but very intelligent and sharp. And when he was seeing that his father was deceitfully, or there was some kind of a deception in his father's action, when he noted this, he wanted to stop his father from doing this, because he knew that the consequences of this kind of a deceitful act was going to be bad, that it is going to bring some evil results and evil consequences to his father. So out of deep concern for his father, and out of his strong adherence to truthfulness, he goes to the father and tells his father, "Oh father, in this sacrifice you are supposed to give away everything to the Brahmins. Please tell me, whom are you going to give me to?" He asked this question once to his father. His father was busy distributing the cows, so he didn't pay attention to the boy's statement. Again, when the boy said the same thing, the father didn't pay any attention. Once, twice, thrice, the boy kept on saying the same thing. "Oh father, please tell me, who are you going to give me to?" At last, father got annoyed, and in the fit of anger, he blurted out. Just like sometimes we become angry, and in that spur of the moment, we blurt out certain things without actually intending it. His father also blurted out something, but he did not actually intend it. So what did this father say? His father said, "Go, I am giving you away to Yamaraj, the Lord of Death. Go to the abode of death." So when the father said like this boy took it seriously. Though the father did not intend what he said, he really did not mean that his child should go to the abode of death. But the son, who was truthful to the core, who was strongly adhering to the principles of truthfulness, the son thought that what my father has said, whether he has intended it or not, the words which came out from his mouth, it should not become falsified. So, in order to preserve the truthfulness of his father's statement, in order to see to it that his father's statement doesn't become false and remains true, he decides to go to the abode of Yamaraj. That is something wonderful. So when he expresses this, his wish to his father, "Okay, father, as you have said that you are going to give me to Yamaraj, the Lord of Death, I have decided to go to the abode of death." His father tries his best to dissuade his son from going there, because whatever he had spoken, it was on the spur of the moment. But that's not the right thing. For Nachiketa, adhering to the principles of truthfulness was paramount. So these are the wonderful traits. I shall come to that point a little later. Let me just complete the story, and then I shall come to the point what we can learn from the small boy, Nachiketa. So because of his strong adherence to the principles of truthfulness, this boy decides to go to the abode of death. And in this way, he reaches the doors of Yamaraj's palace. And when he reaches Yamaraj's palace, he finds to his dismay that Yamaraj had gone out and he was not in the palace. So for the 3 days and 3 nights, he had to remain outside the palace waiting for Yamaraj to come back. After 3 days and 3 nights, when Yamaraj came back, Yamaraj was surprised to see this small, brilliant boy standing at the door of his house. So immediately, Yamaraj welcomed the boy, and as the boy had stayed waiting for him for 3 days and 3 nights without having any food and drink, 3 days and 3 nights Nachiketa had stayed there without having any food and without having anything to drink. As this was the case, Yamaraj offered him 3 boons, 1 boon for each night. In that way, Yamaraj offered him these 3 boons and told him, "Nachiketa, you can ask any 3 things. This is the boon which I am giving, and it will be fulfilled. I shall give you those 3 things." Saying so, now what did Nachiketa ask from Yamaraj? There is a wonderful thing that we can note in Nachiketa's character. When these 3 boons were placed before Nachiketa, the first boon that Nachiketa asked was, he asked, "My father, who didn't want me to come to the abode of death," actually his father didn't want Nachiketa to go to the abode of death, to Yamaraj, but Nachiketa had come just to ensure that his father's words don't become falsified. So naturally, Nachiketa's father was saddened and was very, very, very sorrowful to see that his child has to go to the abode of death. So the first boon that Nachiketa asked from Yama was, "Please see to it that my father's mind becomes peaceful and free from sorrow." We should remember one thing, that whenever we have hurt somebody's sentiments, when we hurt somebody, knowingly or unknowingly, without first redressing that person's pain or sorrow, we ourselves won't be able to be in a peaceful state of mind. This is a very big lesson to be learned in human life. When I hurt somebody, unless I redress that, I myself cannot remain in peace and happiness. So the first thing that Nachiketa, out of his concern for his father, who was in a peaceless state of mind, who was sad, who was gripped with grief and sorrow because his son had gone to the abode of death. Seeing that, the first thing which he asked was, please, O Yamaraja, please see to it that my father regains his peace of mind and composure of his mind. So see, the first boon he asked was for his father. Now what was the second boon? In the second boon, Nachiketa asked, and the background is that in this world, every human being, every man and every woman wants pleasantness and happiness. And everybody wants to go to heaven, to have a pleasurable and a pleasant life. This is the wish of the so-called normal human beings, ordinary men and women. So, and going to heaven means to be in a condition where we are happy and in a pleasant state. So Nachiketa, in and through the second boon, he asks that. He asks for that Vidya, or that way by which human beings can attain to heaven. This was his second boon that he asked from Yamaraj. Now we have to note here, the second boon also what Nachiketa asked for, he didn't ask anything for himself. He asked it for the good of the entire human race. So that people who want to attain to a state of heaven, where they can be in a prolonged span of time in pleasantness and pleasure and happiness, they can attain to heaven in and through this particular Vidya, which Yamaraj was supposed to tell to Nachiketa. So in the second boon also we find that Nachiketa didn't ask anything for himself, but for the sake of the entire humanity, so that they can easily attain to that state of heaven. Now we come to the last boon, and which is the most important thing. In the last boon, Nachiketa raises a very profound question. And that is what actually this Upanishad deals with. The entire Upanishad is the answer to this third question of Nachiketa. What was Nachiketa's third question? In the third question, Nachiketa asked Yamaraj that we see in the world that when a person dies, people say that now nothing is left of him. Some people say something is left. Please tell me, what is the secret or the mystery of this phenomenon called death? When we die, some people say everything is over, nothing is left. Some people say, no, something is left behind. Nachiketa asks this question to Yamaraj. Please tell me, what is the secret about this? Whether something is left behind or at death, everything comes to an end. Now, this is the profound question which Nachiketa, this small boy of just 8 or 10 years of age, this boy is asking Yamaraj, and Yamaraj is totally taken aback to see this boy's profound understanding about this phenomenon of death, that how he has observed that at death what happens and what is the way people look at this phenomenon called death. So, initially, Yamaraj tries to dissuade this boy from proceeding ahead in this direction. Yamaraj says, oh my boy, please don't ask about this question. You can ask for any other boon. You ask for all the good things of the world. I will grant that. But please do not ask about this mystery of life and death. But Nachiketa sticks to his guns. He sticks to his stance. And he says, O Yamaraj, I am not interested in anything else. In and through this third boon, all that I want to know is the secret of life and death. Please enlighten me about it. Again, Yamaraj, in different ways, tries to tempt this boy. He says that, oh boy, I shall give you wealth, I shall give you this entire earth as your kingdom, and you become the lord of this entire earth. You take all the wealth, you take all the pleasures. I shall give such pleasures, heavenly pleasures, which the common human beings cannot even think about. Beautiful damsels, musicians, all the good things of life, which ordinary human being cannot even dream about. Such pleasures I shall give you. Ask for any of these things. Everything will be yours. But do not ask me about this profound secret of life and death. In this way, Yamaraj tries to tempt Nachiketa in different ways, but Nachiketa, this boy, remains steady and absolutely free from all temptation. It's a wonderful quality. We shall come to that point later. And finally, Yamaraj understands that this boy's desire to know the secret about this life and death, his earnestness to understand, to resolve the mystery of life and death was very sincere. He was very sincerely, he was wanting to have this knowledge about what happens when this human body dies, or what is the real nature of the human being. Are we only the body, or is there anything else apart from this body, which is our true nature? Nachiketa wanted to know about this, and he stuck to his stance, and finally Yamaraj had to yield. And thus, Yamaraj's answer to Nachiketa about this profound question is the whole of the Katha Upanishad, in which we find Yamaraj enlightens the entire human race in and through Nachiketa about this great science of the Atman, that the true nature of this human being is the Atman. There is an infinite dimension of reality in each one of us. That reality is termed or called as Atman. Doesn't matter what name we use, but beyond this physical, psychophysical dimension, there is consciousness, pure consciousness. That consciousness, pure consciousness, which is the very basis of the psychophysical system, and which is also the very basis of this entire world and creation which we are experiencing. That is the immortal dimension of the human personality. That is full of bliss. So, the whole of the Katha Upanishad deals with the experience of this dimension of reality, which is known as Atman. Now, let us come to what we can learn from Nachiketa's character, the story. Why Swami Vivekananda loved Katha Upanishad so much was this wonderful character, the role model called Nachiketa, this boy of just 8 years of age. So what do we find in Nachiketa's character? Something wonderful. The first and most important thing for which Nachiketa is immortalized, this name is immortalized. That one trait, that one great quality, number one is Shraddha, a beautiful term. What does this Shraddha means? In that Upanishad, it is said that when Nachiketa was questioning his father, as I told before, his father was giving away all old and decrepit cows to the Brahmanas, which was not the way the charity had to be done, which was wrong, scripturally wrong, and which was untruthful, which was deceitful. When Nachiketa noted that, owing to Nachiketa's strong adherence to truth, it is said in the Katha Upanishad that he was gripped by Shraddha. Now, what happens when a person is gripped by Shraddha? The first thing that we need to understand is what is the Shraddha? That is very important. Shraddha. Shraddha is usually translated as faith. But it is not merely faith. Faith, this English word, is insufficient to understand this concept of Shraddha. It is grossly insufficient because faith is sterile. If faith is sterile in the sense, you can have faith in something and just remain what you are. But Shraddha is not like that. Shraddha is not that kind of a sterile faith. Shraddha is that positive frame of mind which affirms the existence of a non-physical reality. Again, I repeat, Shraddha is that positive frame of mind, the positive frame of mind which accepts, which affirms, yes, that frame of mind says, yes, there exists something beyond this physical dimension of human personality. It is not merely faith, it is a positive affirmation, the state of mind which positively accepts, though it has not experienced it, but it affirms and it accepts that there exists a non-psychophysical dimension of a human personality which is immortal. And why does he accept it? Because it is being told by his spiritual teachers and the scriptures. Shankaracharya very beautifully defines Shraddha in Viveka as Shastrasya Guru Vakyasya Satya Buddhyavadharana Sa Shraddha Kathitha Saddhi Yaya Vastu Upalabhyate. Shastrasya Guru Vakyasya, Shastra, scriptures, and Guru Vakya, the statements of the teachers. Satya Buddhyavadharana, that avadharana, that firm affirmation, the positive affirmation that what the scriptures are saying and what the Guru is speaking about, that is true, that is right, that is there. This positive frame of mind, which doesn't doubt what the teacher is saying or what the scriptures are saying, there is no element of suspicion in that. A wholehearted affirmation about what the scriptures is talking about and what the Guru is saying as true. This is called Shraddha. When you have this kind of a positive frame of mind, the result of this positive frame of mind is that the person begins to move in that direction of experiencing that reality. Yaya vastu upalabhyate. Vastu upalabhyate means that vastu, that reality, upalabhyate, is attained or experienced. So this Shraddha is not merely a sterile faith. We can believe in so many things and yet we remain the same old, miserable human beings. But when Shraddha comes into our life, we are changed human beings. Shraddha completely transforms our personality because Shraddha means positively affirming the existence of an immortal dimension within our own self. When we are gripped by this Shraddha, we are on the road to complete self-transformation. This is a tremendous thing. Shraddha is the beginning of man's final evolution towards the ultimate reality, which he has to experience in his lifetime. Shraddha is that starting point. Another way in which we can understand Shraddha is, again Shankaracharya very beautifully says, it is called Astikya Buddhi. Astikya Buddhi. Asti, not Nasti. Usually people are so negatively they are trained to think everything in negative terms. We're always suspicious. We're always cynical. This opposite of Shraddha is cynicism, suspicion. What the teacher says, we suspect it. We doubt it. We don't want to fully accept it. We doubt the scriptures. This is the doubting mind. This doubting mind is the doorway to self-destruction. So Shraddha is that Astikya Buddhi. Astikya Buddhi means which says Asti. Yes, that reality exists. Beyond this psychophysical system, a reality exists. The moment this kind of an affirmation comes, the roadway to self-transformation is just before us and we begin to walk on that roadway, pathway. So, the first great quality that we find in this Nachiketa is this Shraddha. He is the very embodiment of Shraddha. Whenever the topic of Shraddha comes, Nachiketa stands paramount. It is because of the Shraddha see what happens. The outcome of Shraddha is that the person becomes fearless. The first outcome of Shraddha is fearlessness. When we have deep affirmation and an understanding that there exists a dimension of reality which is beyond this physical dimension and which is immortal, what will happen is this element of fear vanishes from our minds to a great degree. This is a natural consequences because we begin to know that there exists something which is indestructible. So this kind of a Shraddha about something indestructible within our own self is the doorway to our journey towards the attainment of absolute state of fearlessness. Now, because Nachiketa was gripped by this Shraddha, we find that he dares to go to the abode of death. Such a wonderful thing it is. So the Shraddha is this faith in one's own self, faith in one's own real self. That is something wonderful. This opposite of Shraddha we can understand, as I said, and that is cynicism or suspicion, and that is the doorway to all our destruction in life. Another the great quality that we find in this Nachiketa's character is, due to his Shraddha, this adherence to truthfulness, he goes to the Yamaraj, and there, in the Yamaraja's presence, we saw when Yamaraj was tempting him with all kinds of good things of life, this small boy stands totally unperturbed and undisturbed, and he stands, he sticks to his own stance. That is something wonderful. We find that he is not moved by those temptations. Shankaracharya very beautifully says that he is like a vast lake, a vast peaceful lake which none can disturb. Maharidavat akshobhyamanaha. In Sanskrit, Shankaracharya says, Maharidavat. Maharidavat means like a huge, vast lake which none can disturb. Yamaraj was trying his best to disturb him, but he remained undisturbed, untempted. Why could he remain untempted? Because he had the great quality of Viveka. This is another thing which we can learn from Nachiketa's characteristic. One is Shraddha, and when you have Shraddha, Shraddha means the faith in one's own real self, faith in the existence of a non-physical dimension of reality which is immortal. When you have total faith, not merely a faith, but the faith which takes us towards the experience of that reality. When you have that, obviously, you are also endowed with the great faculty called Viveka. Viveka will naturally become active in this person's life. Now, what is this Viveka? The Viveka means one's capacity, one's faculty by which we distinguish between the permanent and the impermanent. It is a great faculty which all of us have, but most of the time we don't utilize it. So this Viveka is the quality, is a great faculty which in most of us remains suspended. It is there, but it is not active. But once the Shraddha factor comes, Viveka also begins to work. Because Shraddha means faith in one's own true self, the unchanging self. When you have the faith in unchanging self, you begin to distinguish between the unchanging and the changing. You understand that this body is changing, this world is changing, the body and the world, they are all transient, but there is a non-changing dimension within my own self. This kind of a distinction which we make, the faculty which makes that is called Viveka. In Sanskrit, it is known as Nitya Anitya Vastu Viveka. You make a distinction, or you distinguish between what is Nitya and what is Anitya. The third thing that we can learn from Nachiketa is Vairagya, a wonderful faculty. When you have Viveka, when you know that all these things are transient, when you know that this body itself is transient, naturally we turn away from it. That which is transient is the root of all the sorrow and suffering we have in life. So, this turning away from the transient and the changing dimension of life and existence becomes possible when we have Vairagya. So, Vairagya means turning our face from the changing dimension of reality and looking towards the unchanging dimension of human personality. That is shifting our vision from the changing to the unchanging. That is what is known as Vairagya. That is, we give away our indulgences and engagement with the so-called the transient and uh, the changing dimension, and we engage ourselves with that which is the unchanging and the permanent dimension of our own personality. So, in this way, we find these qualities in Nachiketa fully present. What are the three qualities, three, four things that we have talked about? One is Shraddha, that is the main thing. Shraddha, we should have Shraddha in what the scriptures talk about. We should have Shraddha in what the Guru tells. The Guru tells us that beyond this body, there is a reality which is our true self. We have to fully accept it. This positive frame of mind which affirms the existence of such a dimension which is being told by the Guru, that is what is Shraddha. When we have it, we begin to walk towards experiencing it. When we don't even accept it, when we don't even affirm it, where is the question of experiencing it? And the main purpose of human life is to experience our true dimension. That is the main purpose. Without that, human life is not at all different from the animals. This is what the scriptures talk about. So, in this way, in Nachiketa's character, we find the Shraddha factor. Second, his fearlessness. When you have Shraddha, you become fearless. And in Nachiketa, we find the wonderful quality of being fully adhering to truth, truthfulness. The small boy, he couldn't accept his father's deceitful behavior. And he wanted to save his father from committing such a big blunder. And we can see this, how strongly he adheres to this principle of truthfulness. And this is one of the wonderful things. Without being truthful in life, human life will be going in the direction of destruction. There is absolutely no true opinion about it. If we deviate from this truthfulness, we are bound to walk in the direction of destruction. So this truthfulness is something wonderful. Now all these qualities like Shraddha, Viveka, Vairagya, truthfulness, fearlessness, this is what we find fully blooming and manifested in Nachiketa's character. And this is also the main concern of all the Upanishads. Now, as I said, what are we going to learn from the Upanishads? From the Upanishads, we come to understand our own true self. And the journey towards understanding our own true self, or becoming enlightened about our own true self, starts with Shraddha. Shraddha is that starting point. Once we have Shraddha, our journey towards enlightenment starts. And once we have Shraddha, and once we begin to walk on the path of enlightenment, then we have all these qualities will be found to be manifested in that person's personality. He will become fearless, he will be truthful, he will have Viveka, he will have Vairagya, and with all these wonderful qualities together, the person begins to move towards that great experience, the experience of one's own true self. In and through this, the man becomes enlightened and man becomes free from Shoka and Moha, two things. Somebody may ask, why should we study Upanishads? What is the purpose of studying Upanishads? Why should we be engaging ourselves in the study of Upanishads? because this is the most relevant thing that any human being can do in life. Why? Every human being wants to be free from sorrow and suffering, and every human being wants to attain undiluted happiness and bliss. Is it not? We don't find any human being who wants to remain in a miserable state. Everybody wants to be free from sorrow and suffering, and everybody wants to experience happiness and fulfillment and to be free from misery. Now, Upanishad gives us this. The central concern of the Upanishad is to free the human being from delusion and sorrow. Two words are used, shoka and moha. Shoka moha nivritti. This is what the Upanishad is finally going to give to us. So we all want to be free from sorrow and misery and delusion, and that's why the study of the Upanishad is not like study of any other books. It is a way of life in which we have to completely change our way of life. The earlier way of life in which we were completely given to running after the things of the world is now checked, restrained, and the whole energy is now focused towards the experience of this ultimate reality within one's own self. And when this inner reality is experienced, we shall become completely freed from shoka and moha. So this is the great lesson that we learn from the Upanishads. And in that, this Katha Upanishad is paramount or very important. And especially this fascinating character of Nachiketa we have before us, whom Swami Vivekananda loved immensely. And truly speaking, this Nachiketa stands as like a role model for these wonderful traits which we find in him. The traits of Shraddha, Viveka, Vairagya, truthfulness, fearlessness. His concern for others, that was another very important point. When Yamaraj gave him the three boons, he didn't ask anything for himself. The first boon he asked for the betterment or the peace of mind of his father. The second boon he asked for the welfare of the entire human race. And the third boon he asked for was about this ultimate reality, which is also for the benefit of this entire humankind. So just imagine, Nachiketa didn't ask anything for himself. Everything was out of the concern for others. If we were given such boon, then ordinary human beings, they would have asked all kinds of things for one's own selfish interest and fulfillment. But in Nachiketa, we find absolute selflessness. So these are the qualities which actually are expected to be present in any spiritual aspirant. If you want to know the reality, if you want to know the true nature of our own self, we have to be endowed with these great virtues. Absence of selfishness and then great traits like Shraddha, Viveka, Vairagya, truthfulness and fearlessness. All these qualities which we can learn from Nachiketa's character are the qualities which we have to try to inculcate in our own personality to move in the direction of this great experience. So in short, in and through Katha Upanishad, we as spiritual aspirants, all the human beings, and especially my young students who are listening to this program, for them it is very important to cultivate these great traits. And this young age, when we are young, this is the best period for us to walk on this path of self-enlightenment and cultivate these great qualities. As we grow older and older, this kind of a self-transformation, which is not impossible, it is possible, but it becomes more and more difficult because it's all, after all, the training of the mind, how we train our mind. More we have lived in the wrong ways, more it becomes difficult to change our ways. So when we are young, it is easier for us to change our ways because we are still young and we have not gone in the wrong direction. And that's why when we are young, we have to put all our minds into it and to see to it that we can inculcate all these great qualities. So this is what we can learn from Katha Upanishad. Once again, I just summarize. That is, great qualities like Shraddha, Viveka, Vairagya, truthfulness, and fearlessness, and finally, concern for others. These are all great traits which Swami Vivekananda was very fond of. All Swami Vivekananda's lectures are filled with these ideas of concern for others, fearlessness, tremendous self-confidence, Atma Shraddha. These are the great things which Swami Vivekananda has spoken about. Swamiji says, I have not spoken about anything apart from the Upanishads. So this is what we can learn from the Upanishads, and especially from the Katha Upanishad, and more especially from this great personality of Nachiketa. I wish all of you the best. May Swami Vivekananda guide you ahead in your life, and may all of you, I pray that all of you should take up the study of the Upanishads in the right manner. You are all studying in this Ramakrishna Vidyamandiram. You have many wonderful sadhus living close by. You should, with the help of those sadhus, study the Upanishads and start to inculcate these great virtues which we find in Nachiketa. Thank you so much.
Pranam Maharaj, my name is Anirudh, and we saw the hierarchy you taught us to move from changing to unchanging character. So what is the initial factor to begin with Shraddha? And in addition to this, could you clear the paradox between pravritti and nivritti? That is, inner purification is required from external habits, or external mindset brings inner purification.
Can you just repeat this question once again? I couldn't hear it clearly.
Yes, Maharaj. Maharaj, we saw the hierarchy you taught us to move from changing to unchanging character. So what is the initial factor to begin with Shraddha?
See, the initial factor, actually speaking, let us go by human experiences. See, we all experience this world through our sense organs and mind. And we can generalize in a very sweeping way. We can say that what is that we experience in life? It can be covered in two words. Either it is sukham or dukkham. Is it not? Let us take our day-to-day human life and the experiences, the bhoga which we have. Either it is sukham or dukkham. And now, for a thoughtful person, you're asking about the starting point. As long as we are thoughtless, now there are two things that we have to keep in mind. When a person becomes thoughtful about what he's experiencing, that is the starting point from where his spiritual journey starts. Otherwise, generally, we find that people lead their lives thoughtlessly. See, when I talk about living life thoughtlessly, it means that most of the people, they are happy with the kinds of experiences they have in life, and their vision is completely glued to the sensory world alone. And they drift in this transient dimension from one corner to the other. That is the nature of human life in this transient plane of existence. But if you look into the experiences of human life, what do we find? We just see, if there is 1 ounce of sukham, behind that you will find there is 10 ounces of dukkham. The ratio of dukkham in life is generally found to be very high compared to sukham. This you will, for every thoughtful person, this is something which is very clear. In fact, We can quote some great masters, we can quote the scriptures, but even without referring to the great masters and scriptures, for every thoughtful person, it becomes very evident and obvious that this life is, if you just see, it is filled with dissatisfaction and incompleteness and limitation. You just check your experience. We are, as we are living in the psychophysical dimension, the physical dimension, we are limited, we are bound, we are constrained on all sides. And as long as the human being is limited, in this limited frame of existence, we are bound. The scriptures use the term bandhana. And in a state of bandhana or bondage, no human soul, no living creature can be happy. So this understanding, when it comes, you ask me what is that starting point? No, the starting point. When the person begins to deeply inquire or deeply study the experiences of life, the sukham and dukkham coming one after the other. And a major chunk of it is dukkham and dissatisfaction. Sukham is only a shadow. Actually, it is all dukkham. So, for a thoughtful person, it is very clear. Now, this person who is dissatisfied with his limited state of existence, who is dissatisfied with the bondage, he wants something unlimited, something indestructible, which is immortal. Now he begins to search. He begins to look for that which is immortal, that which is unchanging, that which can give me permanent happiness, not a shadow of happiness. I want the undiluted bliss and happiness. He looks for it. And then he begins to look for those people who can guide him in this. That is how he comes to the door of the Guru, the spiritual teacher. And when he comes to the door of the Guru, what is his state of mind? The scriptures very beautifully portray, the state of mind of this person who is now an aspirant. What do we mean by aspirant? He is aspiring. He is longing, earnestly longing to know something which is indestructible, because he finds this physical plane, everything is getting destroyed. So now he is an aspirant. And what is his frame of mind? The scriptures beautifully say that he is like a person who is on fire. Suppose if your cloth gets lit with fire, if it catches fire, what will be your state? Just imagine, you have to just exercise your imagination. Suppose if your cloth is, it catches fire, what will you do? You will be desperately looking for water, is it not? If there is a lake close by, what will you do? You will straight away run and you will jump and dive into the water of the lake to extinguish the fire. This is the state of mind of this person who is literally, who has been caught by fire. He is on fire. He is lit. He is burning with the pain of dissatisfaction, unfulfillment, dukkham. That is the fire which has gripped him. And now he's desperately looking for the waters of spiritual illumination. Again, I repeat, he is looking for the waters of spiritual illumination. It is with this state of mind he goes to Guru and asks, "Oh Gurudev, is there a dimension or is there something which can put an end to my present dissatisfaction? Is there anything which can put a permanent end to my suffering and sorrow and misery and limitations? Then please tell me about that." Now when the Guru sees that this aspirant is sincerely asking this question, just like Nachiketa put forth his question to Yamaraj, then the Guru, out of his infinite compassion, the Guru is the greatest manifestation of divinity in the human life. No one is greater than the Guru. Father, mother, relatives, friends, these are all secondary and tertiary. The greatest is the Guru. Guru is the one who opens our eyes about that ultimate reality. So to Guru, out of his infinite compassion, the first thing he says that, don't worry, my child, don't worry, have no fears. First, he consoles the aspirant who has come to him desperately to want to know the truth. And the Guru consoles, have no fear. I will show you that path which will take you beyond this limited state of existence and which will make you experience that undiluted happiness. Now here comes the Shraddha factor. Now the aspirant should have Shraddha about what the Guru is speaking. In my talk, as I said, it is the positive frame of mind which accepts the statement of the Guru as true. The Guru is saying, yes, in that case, it should be true. But then he doesn't stop there. He now begins to use his buddhi in the direction of the direction shown by his Guru. So Shraddha is not merely faith. It is the faith accompanied by a deep thinking mind. Now the mind begins to work in the direction of searching the truth. In the Katha Upanishad itself, you will see a beautiful thing. Katha Upanishad says, Shraddha avivesha. You can just check it out in the book. When Nachiketa saw that his father was deceitfully giving away cows to the Brahmanas, at that time, Shraddha gripped Nachiketa. When the person is gripped by Shraddha, it is not merely faith in that ultimate reality. But the next word is so amanyata. So amanyata means he started thinking. So when the Guru tells that, you see, there is a reality which can be experienced. Now, this aspirant's faith, accompanied by thinking process, he now deeply thinks about what the Guru is saying. And that is what actually takes him to the experience of that reality. And once he begins to do this, he begins to now use his whole psychophysical system, his buddhi, his mind, his all the faculties, his faculty of viveka, everything now is employed in the search for this ultimate reality. Now, these are the stages. So as you asked this question about the starting point, the starting point is the dissatisfaction with our present state of existence. We are dissatisfied with the kind of experiences we are having in life, and that is what makes this person thoughtfully seek the remedy for this dissatisfaction.
To this, I have one more question.
Yes.
There is a paradox between inner purification and external habits, Maharaj. Before moving on to inner purification, we have to change our external habits, right? Or is it inner purification makes our external habits go good?
It's not a paradox, actually. It is one thing leading to the other. There is no purification without changing your habits. In the Katha Upanishad itself, I will just read out. In the Katha Upanishad, there is a beautiful verse. It is a perfect answer to your question. So the Katha Upanishad says, Yamaraj says, it's a beautiful thing. Na virato dushcharitat, na shanto na samahitah, na shantamanaso vapi pragyanenam apnuyat. This is the answer to your question. So Yamaraj says to Nachiketa, na virato dushcharitat. Dushcharita, by bad conduct, as long as na avirato, Avirato means stopping. As long as you don't stop your bad ways of life or bad ways of conduct and behavior, your wrong indulgences, na virato dushcharita, dushcharita, dushcharitra, we talk about dushcharitra. A person's character is dushcharitra. He's a person with bad character. Bad character means nothing but he is using his body and mind for all selfish interests, and he is using it in all wrong ways for all his selfish purposes. So as long as you don't give it up, na virato dushcharita, that is first thing. So you have to change your way of life, your behavior, your conduct, the way you're using your body, mind, and sense organs. That is the first one. Second, it says, na shanto, a person whose mind is not shanta. You have to cultivate a shanta mind, a peaceful mind. Na samahita. Na samahita means one who is not self-controlled, one whose sense organs are not self-controlled. You see? Then na shanta manaso, whose mind is not freed from anxiety and tension. As long as these are the bad habits which we have. We are constantly anxious, stressed, tense, constantly brooding about so many things. These are the bad habits which we have gained over a period of time in our life. Yamaraj says, as long as na avirato, as long as these things are not put to an end, or as long as you don't stop these things, three things he talks about. Dushcharita, wrong ways of conduct, then the state of mind, as long as your mind is not peaceful, it is not restrained, the sense organs are not restrained, and as long as your mind is not free from unnecessary anxiety and worries. As long as these things don't happen, one cannot attain the knowledge of the Supreme Reality. So you see, one thing leads to the other. There is no paradox. There's no paradox about it. It is more, we can say it is the cause and effect relationship is there. The changing the way we live our life, that becomes the cause of the purification of the mind. And when the mind is purified, then this Atman is realized. That is the simple principle.
Thank you, Maharaj.
I request our viewers to ask questions.
Pranam Maharaj, this is Shubhodaya Chatterjee. Maharaj, I have a question on the Shraddha part that you were explaining. So often we undergo a lot of, as you explained, like there will be sukham and dukkham in our life. So when we actually fall into the bad phase of our life, we often tend to fall short of our Shraddha. Like we find like why to think of the Almighty who is giving us so much pain and all. So how to retain our Shraddha even in bad times as well?
It's a good question, actually. See, the thing is that this is because of one thing we have not got the right kind of guidance in our life. When the so-called bad things happen, when the unpleasant events come in our life, we experience unpleasant things. Often we begin to lose faith in God itself. We begin to say, why God is like this? Why God is like that? Why God is doing this to me? We begin to blame that ultimate reality. This is only because of a gross unclarity of the human mind. Because we are not clear about many things about life. We think as if God is doing something to us. God is not doing anything to us. We should remember this first point. We are responsible for what we experience in human life. This is the first principle that we need to keep in front of us when we face different experiences in human life. Whatever is happening to me, whether it is the good experience or bad experience, it is my own creation Nobody else, no second entity in this creation is responsible for that. Remember Swami Vivekananda's that famous statement, you are the maker of your own destiny. If the future destiny you can make, what you are now, you have made it in your past. Presently, if I am experiencing something good, I did something good in the past, that is what has come to me in the form of a good experience. If I'm experiencing something miserable and unpleasant, I have done something bad in the past, which has come to me again as the result in the form of the so-called unpleasant experience. So, it is because of our unclarity of the mind about many issues. This is just one small point. If you begin to inquire, if you begin to look into the mysteries of this life, you will see you need the guidance of a guru. Human mind needs the guidance of a higher light. That is what guru is indispensable when it comes to solving the mystery of life and existence. We need the higher light coming from the guru and the shastras. The ordinary human mind doesn't have the capacity to unravel this mystery. This mystery can be unraveled with the help of a mind which has already unraveled this mystery. That is why we have to go and take refuge at the feet of that enlightened person. Or we have to take refuge in the Shastras. From there the light will come. And then you will understand that why this is happening. So the very fact, the question now again coming back to your question, why do we lose Shraddha when so-called unpleasant things happens in our life? It is owing to the unclarity of the mind which we have. If you have a clear understanding about what is happening and why it is happening, you will never lose Shraddha. In fact, your Shraddha becomes even more stronger. You see that it is my own creation. In my ignorance, I have done so many things and I am just reaping the results of what I did in the past. Nothing else. Now I have to go beyond this. That is the main concern.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Maharaj, I have another question. So, Maharaj, on the point of Vairagya, so often the people who are actually in the household, they get tempted with a lot of things. Like people who are getting working in a company, they get on this time they wait for next appraisal, they try to get more hikes. So this way their temptations keep on increasing. So can you please suggest some ways where we can actually limit our expectations and actually live a normal life so that we can actually attain Vairagya even if living in the household?
See, there is no capsule or a pill which you can take and you will have Vairagya. There is no company manufactured capsule or a pill which you take and you get Vairagya. That way Vairagya doesn't come. Ask yourself what you want in life. Two things here. Again, see, if you study Katha Upanishad, you will get the answer. But anyway, I'm just telling you in brief. All the questions which you have raised, all of you have raised, not only yourself, the one who raised before. The answers are there in the Upanishad itself. That's why I'm insisting that you should begin to read the Upanishads. If you want to unravel the mystery of life and existence, go and take refuge in the Upanishads and study it with the help of an acharya. Don't try to study on your own. Study it with the help of somebody who is higher, who has gone much ahead on this path, and things will become clear to you. Anyway, coming back to your question, how to develop this Vairagya? Simple thing. This Upanishad itself tells us there are two things in life. One is pleasurable. What is pleasurable? You talked about salary hikes. Why salary hikes? Why do we need money? Because with the help of money, we can have so many good things for the body. Is it not? The body and the sense organs, I can enjoy so many good things of life if I have money with me. Without money, I cannot have these enjoyments. So, an unthinking person, the person who is not thoughtful, for him, these pleasurable things become the goal of life. Now, if you want the pleasurable things, there is no question of Vairagya. And why the pleasurable things appear to be very attractive? Because, number one, they give them instant pleasure. But the thoughtless person, he fails to see that these pleasures are short-lived. These pleasures are temporary. These pleasures cannot fulfill the human soul. No matter how much pleasure you have in the human life with the help of this body and the sense organs, you will remain unfulfilled and always you will remain incomplete. There is no escape from this. Now you ask the question, how can this Vairagya come into life? The Vairagya comes when you have Viveka, when you become thoughtful, when you begin to study the nature of all these pleasurable objects. When you study the nature of all these so-called pleasurable objects and the pleasurable experiences, you study. Tomorrow you go and have something, some pleasure with the body and see for yourself. That pleasure lasts only as long as the sense organ is in touch with the sense object. That's all. As long as your indriya is in touch with the vishaya, as long as your sense organ is in touch with the sense object, it gives you a sensation, a titillation of pleasure. The moment the sense organ is disconnected with the object, the pleasure also comes to an end. The satisfaction is also over. After that, you again feel that you want to have it again. This way, what happens is every time you enjoy, you take pleasure in sensory pleasures, your desire for pleasure further increases. It is like, every indulgence in pleasure is like pouring petrol or pouring oil into the fire. What will happen if you pour oil into fire? You pour ghee, clarified butter. If you pour ghee into fire, what will happen? The fire gets even more and inflamed. Is it not? Similarly, every indulgence in pleasure will further ignite the desire for more pleasures. And all these pleasures are transient, they are short-lived, and they cause only the destruction of this physical and the psychological system. Now, this is understood only by the thoughtful person, the person who has got Viveka. A person who doesn't have the Viveka, he will never understand that. He thinks the pleasurable things alone to be the goal of human life. So from where does this Vairagya come? The Vairagya comes when you have a thoughtful mind, when you have Viveka. When you have Viveka, you understand this is complete a deceit. I am being cheated by these pleasurable experiences. This is taking me nowhere. Then this kind of an understanding comes because of the presence of Viveka. And then you begin to turn away from it. Then you begin to see this is just transient. I don't want a transient thing. And this is the cause of all suffering and bondage. I want that which will free me from bondage, and that which will give me the undiluted bliss. That is how Vairagya starts. So there is no ready-made capsule or a pill which you take and you get Vairagya. The cause of Vairagya is a deep insight into the nature of human experiences, a thoughtful mind, a mind which can study and understand the consequences of certain kinds of experiences. And when you see that the consequence is bad, you give it up. Any thoughtful person will never indulge in anything which is destructive, because nobody wants destruction. Everybody wants to be beyond destruction. That is how a thoughtful person gives it up happily. The person renunciation and Vairagya is happily done, not with a long face. We happily give it up because we know this is poison, so we don't want it. And I look for the real nectar, the Amrita, which is inside. And where to find this Amrita, that the Guru will show you, the scriptures will show you. Upanishads will show.
Thank you, Maharaj. Maharaj.
Pranams, Maharaj. My name is Saicharan, Maharaj. I have one question, Maharaj. Maharaj, you said Shraddha means...
You have to be a little loud, brother.
Maharaj, you said that Shraddha means positive affirmation of anything what Guru says or Scripture says. But Swami Vivekananda says we should develop rationality in ourselves.
You should develop
Rationality.
Rationality.
Questioning.
You have to be a little loud, my dear student.
That
I
we
can't
should-
hear you clearly.
That we should develop rationality in ourselves, Maharaj.
Yes.
But how do you justify that, Maharaj? You are saying
See, in my talk, if you just remember, a little while ago I told, in the Katha Upanishad itself, the answer is there. If you just read that word, when Nachiketa was seeing that his father is giving away all old and decrepit cows, at that time, Shraddha gripped him. Shraddha avivesha. Shraddha entered into him. He was possessed by Shraddha, or we can say, Shraddha was awakened in him. And the next word is, that's very beautiful. That is exactly what Swami Vivekananda talks about. As I said, Shraddha is not mere faith. You just have faith in something and you just sit quiet. No, it's not like that. You see, most of the other religions, let me just touch upon this point. How, religions as they exist in the world, they are all belief systems. We just believe. We believe in a God sitting somewhere up in the sky. That's all. There is no way to experience that God. God sitting in the seventh heaven above in the sky. Most of the religions, especially the Semitic religions, they belong to this category. They are all belief systems. That is the beauty of Vedas or the Vaidika system, where it is not mere belief system. Here, the God or the reality is not sitting somewhere up in the sky. That God or the reality which we are seeking is right here, inside our own heart. But we don't know it. That is the problem. Now, how to experience it? We have to experience it. The God which is in the sky cannot be experienced. That God is a matter of faith. You have to have faith in it, and you are where you are. That's all. But the God which is residing in our heart here, in the form of our own true self, it is a matter of faith plus something else. It is not mere faith. That is the thing. That is what is Shraddha. It is not mere faith. Faith plus a deeply penetrating, inquiring mind, which now works in the direction of experiencing it. That is where rationality also comes. Here, faith and reason, they don't conflict with each other. They work hand in hand. The person has got deep faith in what the teacher is saying. Now he uses his capacity to reason in the line of his faith. The faith is that, yes, there exists a reality. And now he uses his buddhi and mind and everything to understand this reality, which is being told in the scriptures, which is being talked about by the Guru. So there is a perfect fusion between so-called faith and rationality, and they are not at conflict with each other. This is a wonderful thing. This is what is Upanishads. So Shraddha is not mere faith. So the second word which follows that, in the Upanishad, the second verse of the Katha Upanishad, please see the second verse. That the term is Shraddha avivesha, followed by so amanyata. Shraddha, Nachiketa was gripped by Shraddha, or Shraddha was awakened in Nachiketa. And what happened? He started to think. So amanyata. Amanyata means he started thinking. This is what you are asking. Rationality. Now use the faculty of rationality or reasoning in the line with what the teacher is telling. Teacher says, my dear boy, there is a reality just behind your buddhi. Just behind the mind, there is an unchanging dimension. Now use the faculty of your mind and buddhi, everything in the direction of finding out that. So Swami Vivekananda says you should be rational, you should be thinking. but not rationality devoid of what the Guru is teaching. Mere rationality has got no meaning. Where can reason take us? Reason cannot take us to the ultimate reality. Reason can only show us that our experiences are limited. Reason can only make us understand that we are bound, but it cannot take us, it cannot completely free us. Yes, it can be a great helping factor in unraveling the mystery of the self when it is clubbed with Shraddha, when it begins to function in the line of what the scriptures are telling, what the Guru is saying. The reasoning faculty, the Vyavahara of the mind, the activity of the mind now should align with what the scriptures are talking about, what the Guru is teaching. This is what in Sanskrit it is told as Shastra Anugrahita Yukti. Yukti is rationality. Yukti should be there, but that Yukti should be based on Shastra and the words of the Guru. Minus the Shastra and the words of the Guru, you just leave this reasoning. That reasoning will never take you out of this state of bondage, because reasoning is an insufficient instrument. It is only an instrument which can clean the way. But if it is clubbed with the teachings of the teacher and the Guru, it can help us to move towards that reality. So what we need is a yukti, a rationality, which is Shastra Anugrahita, Guru Anugrahita, Guru Vakya Anugrahita.
On behalf of all Sri Ramakrishna Vidyamandiram, I thank Revered Swami Shuddhidananda Maharaj, President Advaita Ashram, Kolkata, who is sitting at the lap of the sacred Himalayas, for sharing wonderful ideas on the topic Lessons from Upanishads of Knowledge is Power series. Thank you, Swamiji, for so many wonderful ideas like Shraddha, fearlessness, Viveka, and truthfulness. We will implement and reinforce this values in our lives. Try to implement and reinforce these values. Thank you, Swamiji. Om Priyatam Pundarikakshah Sarvayagneshwaro Hari Tasmin Srishte Jagat Dushtam Prenite Prenitam Jagat Hari Om Tatsata Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.